To the next session for the day, we have Demystifying Innovation in Payments, the digital transformation for the retail payment ecosystem. And to moderate this session, can we please have Chavi Jafa, Head Business Solutions, India and South Asia, Visa. Can we have a huge round of applause for ma'am, please? The co-speakers for the session are Deep Agrawal, Head of Payments for PhonePe. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Deep Agrawal? Arindam Dev, Director of Payments and Strategic Partnerships, Mobikwik. And Parul Khanna, Vice President, Head of Merchandising, Reliance Smart, Reliance Retail. A huge round of applause, please. And over to you, ma'am.
Well, good evening. This is the last panel for the evening, I think. We have one more session after this, and then, of course, there's drinks and dinner. So we've had a lot of interesting sessions. I think the last session we just heard talked about transformation into digital. It's a great segue into our session. What we're here to talk about today is really demystifying payments. And payments, I think, is a less talked about topic when we come to a retail forum like this. However, it's probably one of the key areas when it comes to customer experience. So collectively, on the stage, we have over 60 years of experience. So hopefully, we can bring some good insights to the discussion. We've already had a round of introductions, but Deep, if I may start with you, maybe you can give us a quick background about yourself, and then Parul and Arindam.
Sure. Thanks, Chavi. So I basically look after payments at PhonePe, work with banks, payment gateways, networks, RBI, Visa, all of them to enable the best-in-class payment experience for the entire PhonePe ecosystem for both consumers as well as merchants. I have worked before this for about 6 years with Yes Bank, again leading their new age digital payments area. Worked on various products and launched businesses, managed P&L. UPI is something which I have been part of since the inception at a central ecosystem level. So I have seen the entire journey right since the inception and helped shape it up. And have a fair bit of experience across segments for consumers, for corporates, for consumers, both on the urban area side to the absolute bottom of the pyramid, rural customer side. So that's broadly me, and I am really happy to be here. Hopefully, we'll have great discussions.
Thanks, Deep. Hi, I am Arindam. So I bring close to about 10 years of work experience across payments and financial services. At Mobikwik, I basically lead the offline segment, which is very relevant to why we are here to discuss more innovations in the offline space. And yeah, pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Parul Khanna. I am a FMCG marketer turned retailer. In FMCG, you look at offering food to the world, and retailer, you become a channel to pass on that food. As far as the current role is concerned, I represent here Reliance Retail. I head the Reliance Smart, which is the hypermarket for Reliance Retail. As far as this panel is concerned, it's very good that retail now talks about digital payments, because that's a very, very integral part of running a retail store. I'm glad to be here. And I'm the only merchant on this panel. So I look forward to bringing a lot of customer insights and things from the merchant's lens. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Parul. So with that, I'm going to lead in with a very open-ended question. What I did want to ask each of you, because you come from different aspects of the industry, is what are one or two of the key trends or drivers that are leading some of the innovations in payments in your space? So maybe, Deep, we can start with you.
So we started off primarily as a UPI-based payments app for consumers. Started off, so how we look at the consumer journey is how all of us generally get into anything. So, for example, we start off with sending money to somebody, and then we get on to spending it probably online, offline, do our bill payments, recharges, which become the basic core use cases. And then we look at managing money and hoping to grow it, right? So that's how we are looking to map the customer's journey with the sort of products which we offer to our consumers as well. And that has been our strategy right since the beginning. What we focused on right since our inception is having an open ecosystem, having a completely interoperable mechanism or method for the consumers to make their transactions. And we really pride ourselves in partnering with multiple players across the ecosystem, across the entire chain to provide the best-in-class experience. One thing which we really feel has worked very well in the last couple of years, especially on the payment side, is the speed and the ease at which transactions can be completed on a mobile device, which has been unparalleled across the world actually. And I think that is something which we as Indians should take a fair amount of pride from.
Absolutely. Thank you, Deep. I'll go to you, Parul, because you come from the offline world, so would love to hear what some of the key drivers are for you in the payment innovation space.
So, in the life cycle of digital payments, there has been a clear before and after. One big milestone that happened in 2015, which was demonetization. I think the world of digital payments changed. So does the world of shopping and consumer interaction with any of the stores. When it was pre-demonetization era, all of us thrived on cash. There were cards, but largely credit cards, and debits were used only to withdraw money. And then happened demonetization. Everyone rushed to modern trade, if I speak for my industry, because that was the only place which was accepting cards, which was accepting modern digital solutions. So it started off not as a choice, but the only option. And from there, in 4 years' time, things have changed drastically. Today, the consumer that comes to my store is actually a combination of a human being and a smartphone. And they are inseparable. And their lives they work in a combination, not in isolation. Earlier it was smartphone and digital payments journey going at the same pace. Now the smartphone is one phenomena and digital payments are multifold. So the same consumer is now flirting with various digital payment options. And the game has changed. It's no more about only choice, only option. Now she opens 4 apps. She asks what offer is there, what is the restriction, where would I get the maximum benefit, and then she decides. They are even willing to download a new app or learn a new digital payment technique if they are getting a benefit out of it. So if I have to if I have to call out one single factor which is driving the digital payments, I think it's the customer's appetite to save more, to explore more, and to try her hands on different payment options.
That's great insight, Parul. And hold that thought, because I'm going to come back to you on what you talked about in terms of having choices and options. But you talked about demonetization, so ideal segue to you, Arindam, and I want to talk about how that changed.
In fact, to add on to what Parul and Deep said, I totally believe user convenience and necessity. If these two things are kind of kept in mind, these are the biggest drivers of any innovation, not only just digital innovation in payments. Currently, you see all the digital apps now moving on from payments where they started to now focusing more on financial services needs, which is how do you lend money to a customer who's looking to, let's say, buy a phone at a low interest, or maybe give an insurance for any protection from any of the uncertainties that are there. So necessity and the customer convenience, in which otherwise a customer would kind of have to go through a long process to kind of buy an insurance in yesteryears, have now all been simplified. So that's for me what the innovation stands for.
So like customer experience and customer centricity, so to speak.
correct.
And that's interesting because when we talk about customer centricity, I guess frictionless is becoming a very important pillar. Coming from the Visa world, obviously online payments are, we try to make them friction-free. And in the offline world, cash was supposed to be the most friction-free, but now with contactless or tap and go, it probably is more friction-free than cash even. So we are seeing that switch. So given this whole customer centricity, maybe Parul, I'd love to hear from you on the whole contactless piece, and then we can talk about customer centricity in the online world. So
my experience with contactless is 3 years old. When we started working with Visa in offering credit card and debit card solutions to our customers, contactless is something that we were not sure how it will go because it required a certain kind of education. The customer had an appetite to learn, but we were skeptical. Fortunately, we were proven drastically wrong by our customers, who actually when understood how convenient it is, how quick it is, and what kind of benefits she is getting out of that transaction, she was very quick to lap on. To our surprise, there were people who came and asked us, how do I get a contactless card? And this was where the penny dropped. That a customer asking, I don't have that tap sign, I don't have that Wi-Fi sign on my card, how do I get it? Whom do I call to get this card? And we actually requested Visa that can you set up some kiosks from various banks and help us enroll these people and get the cards. And people actually got the new cards and they came back during the promotion period to actually utilize that. And here I'm not talking about millennials, which in my opinion, is an overrated phenomenon because not only millennials come to my store, senior citizens come to my store, housewives come to my store, and if we are all talking about this digital boom, if we are talking about digital payments in volume becoming 4 times, believe me, it didn't happen because of millennials. It happened because the masses moved. It's because the housewife said, okay, let me learn how to pay digitally. So contactless was probably one step that we took skeptically, and it worked very well for us. It opened a gateway of wallets and payment options in our store. Tap and go, there were a lot of, if I may say, misconceptions. There was a lot of apprehension and fear that it will be misused. In that, we got a lot of support from Visa in educating the customer as to how good the technology is and how safe the technology is. To me, the biggest thing was when it came to education, we were willing, our partners were supporting, but the customer was asking. The customer was looking forward to learn. And after contactless, of course, there are so many digital modes of payments, and it has never been a better time for retailers using different modes of payments.
great. So would love to hear from you because you're a wallet on every
Absolutely.
online e-commerce.
Yeah, so the biggest example that I see of customer centricity is the interoperability piece, which is UPI. So NPCI released last month certain data statistics around this, and it's quite alarming. I would say it's alarming in a very positive way that we've seen 900 million transactions just in the month of August. So we're talking of some huge numbers, and these numbers are not just, as Parul said, just by millennials or just by a few of us sitting in metros. This is a contribution by each and every state and city that is based out of in this country. Just to highlight a few points, for example, this report also said that the city of or the state of Andhra Pradesh, the UPI transactions per person went up to almost 17 transactions, which is like really amazing from a digital perspective. And I think the time is for more and more innovation for us to kind of see how we kind of build onto this further.
So I'd just like to add a couple of things here. Tap and Pay, I think we're starting to see them kind of grow on the card side. But I think the next wave will really come on Tap and Pay on the mobile device itself. So I don't really see a need for the customer to carry a card. I mean, honestly, mobile is becoming all-pervading. NFC is available on most new devices now. So I think that is going to really be the next wave on Tap and Pay NFC specifically. We are seeing a significant adoption of QR-based payments. And while Tap and Pay is easier from a customer's perspective, RBI allows for no PIN-based transactions for transactions up to 2,000 rupees. So RBI has been pretty open about certain things as well. But we're seeing with QR, right? Because it's a fairly simple, easy to deploy mechanism. I think it's also done pretty well. The QR, which is interoperable, especially, it works really well. So that is done very well for us in probably states like Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh. Pune has done better than Mumbai. You'd be surprised to know Mumbai actually lags significantly on offline digital payments when compared to Pune or Hyderabad or Bangalore even. So, I mean, it's a very interesting kind of statistic for us as well. We're trying to figure out what's the reason for this, honestly. But the only hunch we have is that people are in such a hurry here that they just want to hand over cash and move off. So that's the sort of learning which we have. In terms of customer centricity, I think what we're seeing now is a fair bit of focus on convenience of the customers, especially for mobile-based transactions. While UPI has started off a simple 4-digit or 6-digit PIN-based authorization of the transaction, I think we're seeing the card networks also working on something very similar, and I hope we'll be able to launch something very similar with the card networks. But I think the customers today have plethora of options, and these are all options which are extremely simple and easy to use, which we really need to push very hard to be adopted across the country. But I think the customers are truly the kings of digital payments as well, in addition to retail.
So one thing I would like to add, and 101% agree with Deep. The tier 2 towns have taken to digital payments like no one else. When we were doing contactless, it was an interesting anecdote. The highest number of transactions happened in Miryalguda. And when we shared the data with the Visa, some of the people said, where is Miryalguda? And we said, okay, it's a very, very small town in AP. But look at the wave. And even now we see Ratnagiris and Nandeds and Aurangabads and Kolhapurs doing as much as Pune. So I think this wave is yet to reach its peak.
That's a really good point. So what I did want to ask you, though, when talking about what you said, whether it's a different tier town or it's a generation of millennials or senior citizens, segmentation seems to be an interesting and key concept. How are you looking at segmentation and experiences being different, or do they need to be different? Like you said, Parul, people come into your store and they're equally savvy, irrespective of what generation they are. Would love to hear if you guys are thinking about segmentation and experience from a payments perspective.
So I definitely feel that is personalization is something that we need to get down to at the end of the day, because that is when the customer actually feel more connected. So if there is something relevant for that customer available, the probability of him coming up to you and experiencing your journey is much, much higher. How do we reach there? How soon do we reach there? Because all of us in the payment industry are continuously evolving, and that is the next journey that we want to reach out. Is something that I think each and every payment industry is individual in the payment industry is contributing towards. Having said that, the personalization is still there in terms of a lot of aspects. So when you basically look at, let's say, specific segments, maybe like a fashion, like kids destinations or something similar, you would have specific setups done. Probably on a kid's birthday, you would want to receive a personalized message saying that, hey, you get $1,000 off on an SL World trip. So that is something that we definitely aspire to kind of reach out to that level. And I think that's very important.
Yeah. So I'll throw another perspective here. Different kind of customers walk into our stores every day. There are some customers who are completely cash savvy, and our attempt is to make them do that one digital transaction so that they get the hang of it and they want to do it again and again. So cash to card is one segment, which is quite big, I must say. Then here I would agree that millennials are a little easy to convert on wallets, because that's something that comes easy to them. Having said that, the boundaries have become very, very fuzzy. So everything is seamless and anecdotal, because I see a search engine now becoming a mode of payment. I see a wallet now selling insurance, or becoming a payment bank. So I see a communication platform now becoming a mode of payment channel. So it's very fuzzy. At the same time, I believe that the customer is at this moment at the best point of the curve, because she has too many options. She's just flirting around with all my peers here. She decides which one to use which particular day depending on her need. Rather than looking at the customer, I look from the data side. I look at the trends in ticket values. I still see, and there may be a disagreement here, that it's all about convenience, because in our retail store, we see that the lower ticket values are usually cash or wallets, but not cards, whether it's a regular card or a contactless card. So the customer still finds for lower ticket values, $100, $200, she still uses cash, or she would use a new payment wallet option. When it comes to big shopping, she is most comfortable with cards. So if I have to do a segmentation, I would not rather dissect the customer. I would rather dissect the type of transaction, the average ticket value, and see where I can play role. For me, I would like to offer all of them, and I would like to reduce my cash as much as possible. That is my core objective. So to each their own. To a new customers, I would push a card transaction, explain it to them. For probably a more aware one, I would push a wallet. I would like to say the benefits. But I think there is a long way before we start segmenting the customer. We have to segment what are the insights on the transaction part.
Yeah, very, very important on the transaction size. And you talked about fuzzy kind of boundaries and gray areas. So I wanted to ask you more from a ubiquity of payments, and maybe Arindam and Deep, from your perspective, there's the online experience and the offline experience. And the experience should be equally great in the online and offline payments world. Any thoughts you want to add around some of the things you're probably doing in that area?
So how we look at the online and offline world is basically for online, right? So there are broadly two types of merchants. One is the merchants who are primarily app-based merchants. So somebody like an Uber or a Swiggy would probably the app-based guys. And the second would be the pure play e-commerce website-based guys. So that the solution which we have for them is very, very different. And the experience which the customer gets is very different. For a mobile app-based merchant, it's typically an SDK which is integrated with the merchant's app for allowing a seamless, easy checkout within the merchant's app itself. And for an online mechanism or an website-based mechanism, we typically have a very, very simple collect call equivalent, which basically redirects to the PhonePe app of the customer. He just has to authorize the transaction there, and the transaction is completed. Right? So it's not about really completing the transaction necessarily on the website of the customer, of the merchant. So this is the experience which we've seen has worked the best for online merchants. For offline, we have segmented into three broad categories. The first category is the organized retail national chains, somebody like a Reliance here, who have their presence across the country, who have a large-scale system, large-scale capability. So there we work very, very deeply with them, do deep integration with their ERP systems to enable real-time reconciliation, to enable real-time invoicing capabilities. This basically gives us fair amount of process confirmation, which is typically required for these sort of chains. So that is one set of merchants. The second is the local shops or local key accounts, which we call, which is typically regional accounts like, say, a Theobroma in Mumbai, or probably a Gyani's in Delhi, somebody like that. And what we do there is typically a combination of a QR-based solution followed by some sort of a merchant portal and a website, etc. Or we do a deep integration with the POS providers who provide the entire POS solutions to these regional key accounts. So that has worked very well for us. And the third one is the mass retail guys, who are the really large segment. Basically, people right from your tea shop to the grocery shop to medical stores, all of these guys who basically just need a confirmation that the money has been received. What do these guys want? They just want a real-time credit into their bank account because they have to pay off their suppliers in cash and they need the money real-time. They want a simple, easy mechanism of onboarding. They don't really want too much KYC. They don't really want too many hassles around, paying a cost for a POS machine and all of that stuff. So here we've seen that a simple QR code based mechanism, a static QR, works really well. So this is how we've segmented it, and I think this has given us great results in terms of uptake. We have about 6.5 million merchants who accept payments through all of these modes.
Great. Arindam, would love to hear from you. Slightly longer journey.
Yeah. So I don't think I can add much because Deep is already covered, I think, the entire journey. However, what I would like to summarize here is while each one of us here is talking about how do we make it convenient and easy for the user to transact, it is, please understand, it is also equally important for us to make it convenient for you as merchant or partners as well. Because at the end of the day, it is an entire cycle which determines whether a transaction is, or an idea rather, is successful or not. So I totally believe that we have different modes in which we can accept payments which support you as partners or merchants. So it could be a fully integrated mode, semi-integrated mode, or a non-integrated mode. So right from the fuel pumps to a grocery store to a national chain, I think we cover most of the things are covered here. Thanks.
Great, thank you. So, no conversation is complete in the payment innovation space where there's not a debate around convenience and speed versus security. I'm sure there'll be questions in the audience, so I thought I'd just preempt that. And how are you viewing that? Because obviously the rate of innovation is so high, and on the other side, we've got to make sure everything is secure and the infrastructure is secure. So maybe Deep, we can start with you on insights.
So I think I'll just share a couple of examples of the type of frauds these days, right? So while convenience is there with UPI kind of platforms, what is happening is there are a fair bit of social engineering frauds which are coming about, especially on UPI. What happens here is typically the fraudster calls up, say for example, I have listed an item on OLX, and the fraudster will, do some sort of conversation with me on OLX, and then call me up and say, hey, you know what? I'm sending you a link. Just click on that and enter your PIN for you to receive the money, right? And we have a fair number of gullible customers who, at the end of the day, do not understand that you don't have to ever enter a PIN to receive money. You have to enter a PIN to send money, right? And these are the sort of social engineering frauds which are happening fairly prominently, especially on the UPI side. So we're working multifold to manage this. One is to create a fair bit of awareness to consumers that you don't need to enter a PIN to receive money. It's only to debit your account. And we're also working on a lot of technical improvements, kind of using a lot of data to analyze trends and stop these kind of transactions. In terms of the regulator being into this whole mix, I think the regulator has taken a fairly risk-based supervision sort of approach. They are saying that we'll open up convenience, but only up to a certain limit, say 2,000 rupees, right? And that has been their thought process, right, since the beginning for a long time. If you talk about NFC, which is tap and pay without a PIN for 2,000 rupees, or recently they allowed standing instructions for transactions up to 2,000 rupees. So that's the kind of view which the regulator is taking, and they're saying that, show us good transactions, good use cases with this sort of a limit. Show us minimal frauds, show us minimal risk with this, and we're happy to increase the limits. I mean, that's the stance which the regulator is also taking, and I think it's fairly positive. And I think we should commend the regulator as well. A lot of times we don't, but I think they deserve that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. In fact, we always say our regulator is way more evolved and forward-thinking in India versus a lot of other markets. And I think the approach of, let's open it up slowly is a good approach. From your side, Arindam, anything around the fraud and risk piece?
So let me assure you. So I think security is paramount. So there's no two ways about it. While we keep on talking about convenience, usage, speed, and a lot of other synonyms, but security is utmost important for all of us. In fact, while the regulator might have certain guidelines in place to already curb that, but I can probably talk about a lot of digital companies. We call ourselves as product-driven companies and not sales-driven companies. The primary objective is to kind of how do we kind of first reduce the risk and then eventually curb this completely out of the system. I think we've done a tremendous job in kind of cutting the risks right from when we started just pre-demonetization to where we are now. But continuously evolving, and I think we'll be able to kind of come up with new innovations and techniques where we kind of already kind of make sure that the risks are mitigated to a lot of context.
Absolutely, and having been in the financial services industry for, I guess, 17 years now, I always say, including my colleagues, whenever there's more innovation in digital, there's even more innovation in fraud, so you've got to kind of balance it out. And I think for all of us, including Visa, when we invest in innovation, there's X amount more investment on the fraud and the risk-based product set. So you're right, security I think is key when it comes to payments. So we've got a few minutes more left, and I wanted to change track a little bit to partnerships in the payments world. I think the four of us here are a great example of, we all partner together on various aspects. But what's your view on partnerships? There's a lot of debate in the payments world. The ground is moving as we speak. Frenemies, friends, enemies, banks, fintechs, networks, large retailers. Would love to hear from you on where you think partnerships stand.
So first of all, this is not an individual sport, as I would say. So this is a team game where each one has to play their own part very well for this to succeed. So without partners, this entire ecosystem will not be there. So partnerships are very critical here. From any point, so be it from a standpoint from a local tea vendor to a fast food street maker or someone else, this entire ecosystem is incomplete without you as partners. So I would say that this is where a lot of acceptance in the last couple of years is what we've seen, and we intend to build on this and kind of reach greater heights together.
I'd like to just kind of say what we are doing here at PhonePe. So we've been a very open ecosystem partner based player right since the beginning. We actually, so just to give you an example, right? So we actually work with partners and say that, hey, we have this platform. We will help you get more business, right? And that is very, very clear thought process in our mind. We never want to tread into somebody else's domain or territory. So, for example, we work with banking partners to help them onboard more customers. We work with merchant partners to help them get more customers onto their stores. We work so we have something very unique called as the Switch platform, which is our in-app platform. That basically is like I would say a Play Store, App Store equivalent, so to say. But basically, these are progressive web apps, or these are these really small SDKs which can be present on our platform. Customers can come onto this platform and complete their entire transaction flow here. So, for example, we've partnered with Ola. So, Ola ride can be completely booked. You don't need to have the Ola app on your phone. And the transaction is so seamless and easy that the customers really love this experience. We have 50 such partnered apps like EatFit, Ola, Oyo, Make My Trip, all of them. And the sort of engagement which these merchant partners are seeing is way more than what they would see on their own apps. So for example, we are seeing about 15% return of customers for most of these app players versus what they would see on their own app. So all the effort around getting the customers to download an app and to keep them on it, that's not really there. There is a ready platform of 150 million users which is available. Start using it immediately. So that is the sort of open thought process which we have. On the financial services side, we're working with mutual funds, we're working with insurance companies to actually launch products which are differentiated and easy to use for the consumers. So the customer viewpoint is paramount, but working with partners is the way to reach that.
And Parul, since you represent one of the largest retailers, what's your input?
So I agree with Deep and Arindam. Can't add anything to the fact that we have to integrate on platforms. We have to bring the customer base to each other. But if partnership were the crystal ball and I had to look at it, I will move beyond integration of platforms or IT or ERPs. I would look at a completely integrated customer solution, customer relationship solution, which means that the moment the customer, first of all, one single card or one single app, which can be used everywhere, whether it's a metro or it's a shopping mall or it's a restaurant. I mean, something where the customer doesn't keep switching. There is one integrated platform where everything can be used. The second thing that I would want my crystal ball to deliver is as soon as the customer enters my store, there is one solution which recognizes whether she is Mrs. Nair or she is or he is Mr. Vicky Arora, and there is an activation on the smartphone, again human plus smartphone combi, and we immediately come to know whether it's the payment solution or us, the retailer, we come to know what she's been buying. So if Mrs. Nair has a list that she buys all the time, 20 items which she buys most of the time, I want those 20 items to be added to her cart without her actually browsing. I think we talk a lot about speed and convenience. I have another view. I don't want the customer to spend less time in my store. I want the customer to spend more time in my store. I want the customer to spend less time on checkouts, less time on browsing those 20 items which she always buys, because that is counterproductive. But I want her to spend more time browsing new products, browsing premium categories, browsing something that I want to tell her that it's a new product, browsing something that gives, that I want to sell to her. And to be able to do that with the help of a smartphone, by the time she has browsed all that, she has consumed the theater created in my store, consumed the new information that I want to give to her. By the time she approaches the checkout, again, all of us put together bring up a solution where her checkout, probably her regular trolley is already built, and she just does opens one app, irrespective of from whom she wants to pay through, and she immediately pays it. And then there is an immediate loyalty updation also, wherein one of you helps me putting that up on the bill, that this is the loyalty points that she has added, and this is the saving that she has done. To me, that is where I would like to reach along with my peers here.
Thank you, Parul. I think you've laid out a wonderful vision for all of us. Least amount of time on checkout, a lot of time on, actually spending time in the store, online or offline, and really making the experience holistic and beyond just, payments and shopping. With that, let me open it up for some questions. We have a couple of minutes, so maybe we can take one or two questions, but would love to hear from you. No? Okay, I guess we've convinced you. There we go.
My question is to Parul. Parul, when somebody is doing digital transaction or not using cash, what are the benefits you are passing out to him? Is he going to get any benefit from the shop?
Yes. In fact, all of us gain when the cash is reduced. Of course, starting from the directive from the government, we want to reduce the usage of cash. The customer, how she gains is she's getting benefits. So if she's making a transaction of say $500 in that particular store, she has to shell away that $500 through cash. When it comes to cards, there is a cashback. When it comes to wallets, there is some incentive for her used to download the wallet. Some of the wallets actually say that if you're a new customer, there is X benefit, and if you're a regular customer, there is a series of Y benefits that come your way. So the customer gains this way. As far as the merchant's gain is concerned, it's a nightmare to manage cash. It's a nightmare to control cash, count, register, and then deposit, and to track the whole cash. So the less cash that I have in my system, I think the more efficient system becomes, the more transparent and secured the system becomes. So I hope I was able to answer your question.
No, the only thing is that the benefit which the digital transaction customer gets, that benefit cash transaction customer doesn't get, you mean to say?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much to my panelists. I think we had a great interaction and great discussion. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you.